The State of Blazor with Michael Washington.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host, and make sure to check out www.azuredevops.show for past episodes and show notes. And I'm excited. Lots of people are taking me up on that offer for a free 30-point DevOps inspection in your environment. And I'm glad that it's helping a lot of people. Also, if you run a user group, now that they've gone all virtual for the time being, I'd love to speak at a group event. I've been booked up every week. It's fantastic. If you're tuning in for the first time also to the podcast, the Azure DevOps Podcast is for developers shipping software using Microsoft technologies. And my goal is for all development teams to be able to move fast and deliver quality and run their systems with confidence. And today on my show is Michael Washington. He's an ASP.NET and C# programmer. He has extensive knowledge in process improvement, billing systems, student information systems, and he's the founder of the AIHelpWebsite.com and the BlazorHelpWebsite.com. And he has a son, Zachary, and resides in Los Angeles with his wife, Valerie. Michael, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine.
Awesome. Well, it's been a long time since we've seen each other. I'm looking forward to catching up here. But for those who maybe haven't seen your, some topic help websites over many, many years, how long have you been doing that?
Well, it's over a decade, maybe 2 decades, I think. I originally got started. My first help website was when I was learning .NET Nuke back in the days. And I just kept, every time I wanted to learn new technology, I created a new help website. And I moved through Silverlight, Lightswitch, even HoloLens. And currently, my latest website is the BlazorHelpWebsite.com.
Mm-hmm. And what has made, now I'm partial to it as well, but what has made that catch your attention with so many technologies coming out? What is it about Blazor that says, wait a minute, this is worth investing my time in?
The fact that I can create applications, and mostly I create line of business applications, the fact that I can create them using pretty much all C# and HTML. That alone, I am very well versed in JavaScript. I've written books on using Angular. So it's not that I'm not familiar with it. TypeScript is a wonderful technology. However, the biggest problem I have with the JavaScript ecosystem is it's very difficult for newer developers. So in my job, I supervise a number of developers, and you've got the Uber developers who can, keep up with the technology, the Angular 6, 7, 8, 9, and you've got some that just, it's hard, but they're good people and they are good developers. So when Blazor came along, the fact that I could bring all of the developers on board with to create the latest, the best looking websites and web applications, that's what got me to say, you know what, I want to give this a try. And it's proven to achieve all my hopes and dreams.
Awesome. If I may, it seems like there's a theme of certain technologies where it's not that technology, but it has some elements in it, and it seems to interest the same crowd of people. And I'm looking at the group of Silverlight, and then I look at the group that was really interested in Lightswitch, and also .NET Nuke community and Blazor, over time there's been a few technologies that have said, will we really be able to have rich, responsive applications in the browser because they're so much more productive? Am I off track on that, or do you see a little thread there as well?
Oh, I'm with you 100%. I think that it's twofold. One is, how does the technology affect the consumer, our end users? The other one is, how does it affect the developers, which again is very important, because if the developers can't deliver that technology, that website or that application, the end user won't have it. Mm-hmm. So in each case, let's go back to .NET Nuke. What it provided was a person who was not an expert programmer like I was back, when Sean Walker first, came out with that.
When was that? Was that 2004?
I think it was 2002, maybe 2002 was his earliest stuff. But I was coming from a classic ASP.NET developer, hacker person, Cold Fusion developer, and I was trying to get into .NET. .NET Nuke allowed me to put up a website, and I only had to code, the little part that I need to code. Mm-hmm. So the end user was being helped, but also as a developer, I was being helped. So you're right. That sort of mindset continued throughout. So, for example, when Silverlight came, people who were, we have developers who were not even, they were children when when this was a big thing. But Flash was the way to have a rich application, but it was so hard to, what I'm saying? It's kind of like, we have with the current JavaScript framework stuff, there was so many little pieces, So therefore Silverlight said, hey, C#, stuff you can understand. This stuff compiles. It's in Visual Studio. So yeah, the progression, it stays the same. And when Blazor came along, I'm telling you, I saw the vision. Steve Sanderson, the man he's a great person in the programming world, because I'm telling you, he's able to see the forest for the trees, and what he's created here, it's bigger than most people realize. And furthermore, I'm also very involved with Oqtane, which of course is created by Sean Walker, and it does what .NET Nuke did, but it does it in Blazor, and that is really where my focus is moving forward.
And Oqtane spelled Oqtane.
Exactly, right? Yes. Oqtane.org is where you can find information about that. But it's Blazor. It's a Blazor application, but it's primarily a framework that allows you to create your own modules, plug them in, and the framework will handle everything else, like the registration and content pages and file uploads and of course other modules and that sort of thing.
Well, tell us what Oqtane is. Is that a new open source project, a new commercial system?
It's an open source project. It's actually sponsored by the .NET Foundation, so it's a true, fully open source project. It's got quite a few people already involved in it. I, of course, got involved with it with Sean Walker over a year ago when he first started, putting out on GitHub, I've got some ideas, and I've actually contributed some code to it. So the installer actually has, I was the original person to write the original installer, though a bunch of developers have jumped in since then. But yes, it's the place where if you're trying to get a Blazor application out the door, you might want to take a look at Oqtane, because you only have to work on the part of the application that that's custom to you. So, for example, let's say your company needs a website to allow the employees to put in their vacation days or something. Well, what you can do with Oqtane is you install Oqtane. It already has a way for people to register and manage registrations and security pages and all that sort of thing. And then you create a module that allows the employees to indicate their days off. You only have to write just that one module. The rest of the site's done for you. So something that would have taken you, weeks, you literally can get done if you're really experienced, you can get it done in like 2 days. And this is what .NET Nuke and other frameworks like that have provided for years. Oqtane is just the one that we use for Blazor.
Right. And it's interesting how, and I think of Oqtane and .NET Nude as more like an Uber application framework, where if you buy into it on top of your programming platform, you have a whole bunch of pluggable elements, and you're really taking advantage of the buy versus build decisions.
Yes, exactly.
And it's interesting that Blazor caught the attention of this community, but let's say ASP.NET MVC did not. What are the elements? Help us. Why?
I'm glad. Okay. I'm glad you're going there, because I recently published an article, a blog post called Advanced Blazor Templating. And you would say, well, it's kind of obscure. Why are you bringing this up? Again, we have to go back to Steve Sanderson, the creator of Blazor, who, his history goes back to, he's inventor of Knockout. He's a master in the various web technologies. So he created JavaScript services, which allows you to integrate Angular and Vue and React into the .NET Core applications. So he really understands things. When he created Blazor, the connection that it has to .NET Core, like deep into .NET Core, is extraordinary. And again, it's something that's just hard for people to understand. So when I wrote this article about advanced Blazor templating, which was based upon some code that a guy who goes by Mr. Magoo published, he was showing how you can pass in render fragments as parameters to templates. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to visualize this, but I actually did. I made a visualization with arrows and things. But this is so powerful because it's HTML snippets that are dynamically created that contain code that are then passed as parameters into other templates. Mm-hmm. The power of this is extraordinary. You cannot do this in, say, for example, Angular, because Angular can only do the client side. It can't do client side and server side, whereas server side Blazor, hey, that template has server side code as well as client side code in the same execution. So it's so powerful that is the reason why Oqtane is able to do things that you could not do in MVC, as well as you had other issues. So that's why .NET Nuke never really went to MVC. There's certain things that they were able to do in web forms that you couldn't do in MVC. And whereas when Blazor came along, Sean Walker was able, again, he's one of these people who goes way back. He can see the forest for the trees, and he was able to see what Steve Sanderson was trying to do. And he, I think, with Oqtane is expressing the power. And that's why the injection that you can do of your custom code into the framework and what the framework can recognize is extraordinary. So one quick example is with .NET Nuke, you had to create your custom modules, and then you had to do a lot of special configuration in the database to go, oh, this is my module, it does this, it has this. With Oqtane, you literally open up Oqtane, you write some code, and you hit save, right? And then when you run Oqtane, it discovers the fact that, oh, you wrote a module. Oh, let me register the module. You know what I'm saying? And that's because the power of Blazor, integrated with the .NET Core, framework, the capabilities are just extraordinary. So again, it's hard to explain to people. I just encourage them to take a look at it, but it's very exciting. And in my opinion, there is not another technology that can do these things.
So is Oqtane in production yet?
We don't have a 1.0 release yet. However, the 0.9, if you go to GitHub right now and download the 0.9 release, it is very, I would say it's 95% plus complete. The real reason why Oqtane hasn't done a 1.0 release yet is Blazor client side has not been released yet. Blazor server side, whereas Blazor runs in two modes, server side and client side. The difference is that when it's running client side, it's like Flash and Silverlight, whereas you've got this thing running in the browser. It's not. Don't call it a plugin. It's a plugin, folks. But anyway, yet in order to communicate with server side resources, it has to make HTTP calls, back and forth. Whereas server side Blazor, everything truly runs server side the way a web forms app or even an MVC app would run. So because the server side version, it's already out there. I mean, it works great. I use it for all my websites, both personal and for my company. And but the client side version is still quote unquote in beta. Hopefully it'll be released in the next 2 months. So because Oqtane works in both modes.
Okay, it does. So it does work with the released Blazor.
Yes, it works with the release Blazor, but the client-side version, because Sean knows that there could be some changes, he doesn't want to declare a 1.0 release in Oqtane until Blazor client-side has been released. So that's what the holdup is. Okay. But it works now. So if you use it now, it works now. But because Sean knows, next week something, Microsoft would, it's if they call something beta, you have to
oh sure,
believe them.
Are you
That's
aware?
What the holdup is.
Are you aware of any Oqtane server side apps in production?
Well, right now, if you were to use Oqtane and you make a module for it, it will work. That module, if you follow the guidelines, it will work both client side and server side. So right now, they've got some sample modules like a blog module that Sean wrote that will work server side, or actually, like I said, even client side. It's just that, please understand, client side one may break. But yeah, it works right now. The only reason why, for example, I don't have a Oqtane site in production myself yet is only because I expect once we do get to 1.0 release, that the install experience and the upgrade experience will be very streamlined. And that's important to me, meaning if you don't make something, a framework that's easy to be upgraded, you're going to run into the problem that we had with other frameworks in the past, which is an exploit is discovered, yet people don't upgrade their site because the upgrade is really difficult. So that is something that we're doing differently in Oqtane. And I've been really, Sean Walker and I have had many conversations about this. I'm like, Sean, it has to be easily upgraded. So the upgrader is already in there. It's just that, like I said, we're waiting for that 1.0 release to really solidify things. So it's in progress.
Good point. And in the olden days, the upgrade was a wizard because you're actually on a VM. But now it might as well be on a Azure website or in a container running behind a reverse proxy. But when you say upgrader, what are you talking about?
Okay, for example,
now?
Let's talk about this. So what's really nice is, again, Sean Walker is the vision he has surprises me sometimes. He uses NuGet. So literally, when a new version of Oqtane is released, it'll be placed on NuGet. You open up your Oqtane website. Of course, you log in as the super admin, and it will detect that, hey, there's a new version of Oqtane, on NuGet. You then literally click a button. It downloads the NuGet package from, and literally the framework upgrades itself.
Okay.
Right there in like the web browser, but still on the server sort of thing. That's how easy the upgrades will be. Now, so at this point,
what's the data
anybody
store?
can do it.
What's the data store for Oqtane?
Oh, it's still SQL Server.
Okay, so there's some type of SQL Server schema migrations in there?
Yes. So the package. So again, just like with .NET Nuke, there is a manifest and a like SQL scripts to upgrade the tables and any various database objects. Obviously, the code just boom drops in. It's the same thing with modules. If a module developer either releases an Oqtane module or updates it, when you go into Oqtane, Oqtane checks NuGet and says, "Oh, hey, you've got the blog module and the forums module installed. Look, there's updates. Do you want them?" You click a button, and it boom updates it automatically for you. This is going to make things so much easier for people who have to operate these sites who may not be as advanced developers as other developers. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yet they're going to be able to easily manage their site, keep it secure. If there's any exploits, everyone's going to be able to just click a button to upgrade it. So security is going to be unparalleled with any other framework. I don't know of any other application framework like this that will provide updates the way Oqtane will be able to do. So again, I'm very excited about this because obviously security of the websites of my friends, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The people on the other end of this are friends of mine who I've known like you for over a decade. You know what I'm saying? So I care about your website.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a software engineering firm and Microsoft Gold partner, empowering development teams to be their best. ClearMeasure equips developers with the DevOps tools, methods, and automation necessary to focus on building their applications, rather than wrestling with builds, deployments, or environments. Click clear-measure.com to see whether a DevOps implementation is for you.
Hey, this is Jeffrey. Do you ever wonder if your software project is on the right path? It's really common for software projects to experience delays, to have the quality not where it needs to be, or have the team spending more time maintaining the software than you really should. In my practice, we know the challenges implementing all parts of DevOps, and it can make your head spin how many things you have to think about, and somewhere in your gut, you know that something's missing. So I've created a comprehensive 30-point DevOps inspection, reviewing your current process, methods, tools, source control, build integration, the various levels of testing, provisioning and maintaining environments, deploying, logging, telemetry, everything you need to think about in a high throughput, high productivity DevOps environment. And it really helps you gain peace of mind knowing that you're on the right track. And we are offering some more of our really popular 30-point DevOps inspections, and it's normally a $5,000 value, but I'm giving it away for free for my podcast listeners. Just send me an email, jeffrey@clear-measure.com. That's Jeffrey, and I'd be happy to inspect your existing DevOps environment, whether you use Azure DevOps Services, Octopus Deploy, TeamCity, any number of tools, because there are a lot out there. But what's important is that you have a complete and automated DevOps environment put together the right way. So get a second pair of eyes. Send me an email. So talk about the DevOps pipeline experience. If someone doesn't want to just use the in-app installer experience on production, but they say, okay, I have a test automation environment and a UAT manual test environment before I get to production. How does that installer experience work when you're promoting it using, say, Azure Pipelines?
So Oqtane also allows you to place NuGet packages in a special directory, which will then, when it starts up, it goes, okay, this is work for me to do. So you can push things that way. And obviously, if you had your Oqtane website running, for example, say in Azure, your DevOps pipeline simply just pushes the NuGet package into that special directory, and Oqtane will detect it and go, oh, okay, and it'll do some work. Another exciting piece of technology that Sean designed into the system, because people like me bugged him, is I've got an open source project called ADEF Help Desk, which is an open source help desk, which has gone through various iterations, Silverlight. The latest version is currently in Angular. I wanted to distribute the Blazor version inside Oqtane, but I wanted it so that you go to the ADEF Help Desk website, click a button, and it will then push the ADEF Help Desk module into Oqtane, and then go into the Oqtane wizard. The person installs Oqtane, and they end up with ADEF Help Desk inside Oqtane. So Sean Walker had to design a way for us to kind of bitstream, slipstream a custom template, install template into the Oqtane system. So he actually did do that. I plan to do a blog on it in the next couple of weeks on how that works. But that's another way of showing how the Oqtane framework is designed to work with, the kind of thing I think that you're kind of alluding to, some sort of custom, DevOps structure, that certain organizations would like to have. So it has hooks for that.
Okay. Yeah, because I think one of the premises is never do anything in production that you haven't practiced many times on pre-production platforms. And so that installer, as long as that, if there's a command line, and this may be a pull request, if there's a there's a command line hook to run the installer, to where it's like, okay, here's a staging environment or whatever people name them, and run it, and then run some smoke tests to make sure that everything went okay. That way, nothing new is ever run in production that hasn't been run, practice, test prior.
So if you actually look at the GitHub conversations on the Oqtane, you'll see that a number of people have come in with those exact concerns, and they have put in some pull requests to address some specific things. That's why it's really nice. Oqtane is a true open source project operated by Sean Walker, who has a lot of experience in running large open source projects, and people will, like you just said, they have concerns and they are submitting pull requests and they're going in. So yes, this is something that's constantly evolving to address what you're talking about. So, and it's like I said, it's nice because as a community we come together to help each other as well as obviously help ourselves, because I'm sure you have something in your head as far as, you know what I'm saying? As you're talking to me, telling me about this scenario, I'm sure there's probably something specific that's in your head. That
I have to test it out. I have to test it out. Well, let's talk about Blazor a little bit more in depth. And you've put plenty of Blazor server-side apps in production. There's the docs and there's simple YouTube videos and demos, but what are the gotchas beyond just the quick starts? What have you had to really think specifically about, and what are the challenges as someone who's put multiple Blazor apps in production?
The best thing is to think about Blazor as, well, server-side Blazor. As essentially is web forms or MVC without postbacks. That's really it. Honestly, that's it. So therefore, the only gotcha that I've run into is because there are no postbacks, what we're used to is whenever there's a postback, there's a cycle that starts and it ends when the page is rendered back to, to the screen. A person clicks another button or performs another action, and the cycle starts again and ends again. So with Blazor server side, the communication between the front end and the the back end uses SignalR. And SignalR is, it does this really tiny communications. I mean, it's not even in kbytes. It's literally bytes of information. Yet it remains connected the entire time. Because of this, you don't have that sense of this thing happened and it's over, and the resources have been flushed out. So therefore, the number one gotcha is when using a technology, for example, Entity Framework, you will basically kind of start a transaction. And if the transaction completes, great. But if you, for example, there's an error that was thrown, Entity Framework on purpose will go, hey, I'm going to hold this, this error in this collection thing so that you can resolve it and either undo it or complete it. Well, if you're a developer and you're not used to this and we're expecting this, you'll have a situation where an error comes up, the person fixes the error, but then when they try to hit save again, Entity Framework says, hey, I still got this error. So therefore, I've been really careful, and I had to go back and update my main book that's on to get on Amazon. I had to update that book. And also, I also wrote a book for Syncfusion just recently.
You have to tell us the titles.
Oh, okay. So the book that's on Amazon is called An Introduction to Building Applications with Blazor. And the one I wrote for Syncfusion is called Blazor Succinctly. Yeah, Blazor Succinctly.
Okay.
I made sure that in both of those books, I put in into the code how to handle if there's an error with Entity Framework, Entity Framework transaction, how to undo and roll back. I also made sure I covered another piece of technology that the Blazor team put in there that allows you to scope your transactions per page. Because with Blazor, a person goes to one page and you load a service and the person's using that service, they go to another page and that service is still using up resources, which can be a problem because if the person stays logged into your site, their application for hours, and then more people come in, you could have an issue there. So I make sure that I cover all that even in the beginning book. Those are really the only gotchas. Other than that, I'm telling you, if you are a web forms programmer or an MVC programmer, whatever, I've got people up to speed with Blazor in only 2 hours.
Nice.
I mean, I've literally had developers who, these are C# developers, so it's not like they don't, know how to program. But I literally been able to have them go through like one of my tutorials. It takes them about 45 minutes. And then, of course, they're messing around a little bit, whatever. But in, say, 2 to 3 hours, they're able to produce production quality code. I'm sorry, I can't. That was not possible with any of the JavaScript frameworks. I mean, they're still trying to learn how to figure out NPM and get NPM to properly install. The last time I had this kind of productivity, as you will know, was Lightswitch. Lightswitch was the last technology where a person can just go boom, boom, boom and be up. The difference, of course, between Lightswitch and Blazor is Lightswitch was a very, on purpose, opinionated framework. You're not coding the pages yourself manually. You're coding them in the context of this overriding application that's doing a lot of managing and that sort of thing. Blazor, on the other hand, is the person is truly, you can open up Notepad and write Blazor code. So you're on the metal, yet you actually could have the speed and the productivity that we kind of had with Lightswitch. So
yeah, and
again,
there's a lot of
people
people
excited about.
There's a lot of people that looked at Lightswitch and because Lightswitch Silverlight came out first, when Silverlight went away, they thought, oh, Lightswitch is gone. But they had come out with a HTML, JavaScript, an Entity Framework and C# stack. But and you give your opinion on this, but it seemed like they were targeting Office developers. So it seemed like it was just in the wrong part of Microsoft when they made the implementation. And so the vision kind of died. But architecturally, the vision, that model seems like it could be implemented on top of Blazor and have a more maintainable implementation. What's your opinion? Yeah,
so I think that the problem that, in my opinion, that let's go into the Lightswitch HTML. Okay, so yeah, Silverlight went away. It wasn't, Lightswitch's fault. It wasn't Microsoft's fault. It was, Apple said, hey,
no more plugins.
no more plugins. So I really think that they try to position Lightswitch to be what Power Apps currently is.
So it competed internally in Microsoft. And
internally, yeah. Good. So, yeah, exactly. So Power Apps, I think, was where Microsoft wanted to go, and obviously it is a smart decision. You know, Power Apps is a very profitable part of Microsoft, of course. So I think that that's what the issue was, as well as it was a very costly project for Microsoft to maintain. JavaScript in itself is very unwieldy. I mean, imagine Lightswitch was based on jQuery. jQuery is not exactly the, right. You know, so they would have had to go into Angular and maintain that. It's a thing. So I don't think it was ever a case of the technology wasn't good. It's just
the implementation was challenged. Also.
Okay, so now let's go to what where you were going here with. So there are things about it that can't we use certain things. In both my book and even in the Syncfusion book, which is only 80 pages, I use Entity EF Core tools to walk the person through creating the data layer, which is essentially one of the big parts that Lightswitch allowed you to do. It allowed you to go, oh, I can create this data layer. So there I was attempting to follow what we learned that was good about Lightswitch. I'm kind of showing how you can do that in Blazor. So therefore, can we have an application builder, a bigger one? And there is a company, Radzen, Radzen, that did build, and theirs even has a visual designer, something you're never going to see anywhere else. So, and they have a free version that you can download. It allows you to create one application, but it's free and free forever, and you get to play with it. So if someone was interested in a Lightswitch-like thing, but for Blazor, I would recommend that you download Radzen. And one more thing about them is their application builder was originally created and still exists for Angular. So they so actually in the same application, you can either make an Angular app or a Blazor app. And from my experience, the Blazor apps are always, very stable. You don't end up with these weird, sometimes build errors. And the build error problem is not a Radzen problem. It's a .NET Core problem. Okay. Yeah, you want JavaScript. No, it's an NPM / you know what I'm saying? So on my machine, if it gets a little sluggish, the Radzen builder will kind of go, oh, well, wait, build thing. And so you have to go in and try, that sort of thing. Whereas the Blazor stuff is like, no, bam, you hit the button. It always works every time. It's always fast. It's very, to me, it feels more stable. So, so that is a product that I feel truly will do. If you are a Lightswitch person, I feel that the Radzen product actually achieves it. And there you go.
But the theme seems to always come back to productivity and just not accepting that you're going to just bang on Angular or React for days and days to get things done. Now, of course, the pro Angular and React programmers say, no, I can move quickly. But I'm talking about from scratch, from zero Git repository to something real, fully tested. Yes. And productivity. And I mean, I've done the React and Angular projects just like everybody else. And I see that productivity difference. And
that's an understatement.
Yeah. And so it all comes back to productivity and actually getting things done and personally working or having, whether it's you yourself programming or whether it's if you're overseeing some other programmers, focusing their actual coding effort on things that are truly going to make a difference for the application or just the plumbing that has to get done.
So yeah, let's you and I agree that in the end, people are what matters. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we do all the technology because this is how we are. We're wired to do it and we love doing it and that sort of thing. But in the end, humans, beings, they are what matters. And we're doing this interview in the middle of a pandemic where there are, I don't want to go into how many people are dying every day. Servicing these people is what's important. And being able to produce applications that allow these people to, have better lives, do important things. This is what's important. So productivity, in some cases, is a matter of life and death. So, you and I both come from this productivity and we're concerned with developers that we supervise and their ability to be productive and that sort of thing. Whereas other people are like, no, it's all about the technology, whatever. Right now, what we're facing now, I feel is what shows that people matter. So there's a project that I do in my work, whereas they needed to deliver. Teachers need to deliver files to students who are incarcerated. And the reason why this is important is that they can't just use certain technologies like Zoom and Teams with incarcerated youth, because there's a situation where, gang members will use that technology to communicate with each other and start a riot inside the facility. So we have to deliver custom solutions. And in this particular solution, I have a single developer who is using Blazor, to handle file uploads and trees and a single developer. Yet this developer, in a matter of days, is able to create a working application so that we can get this thing out, as fast as possible. Because the education of these youth is I'm saying, they're people and they matter. Yeah. So I just wanted to interject that in the sense of, you and I are of the same mind when it comes to things like productivity and that sort of thing. But I'm okay. Fine. I'm guilty of it, and I'm saying that yes, this is who I am. My purpose in life is to serve my fellow man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And therefore, productivity is important. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for it. And unfortunately, there's other technologies that the productivity the difference is a factor of 10 or more. In some cases, a factor of 100. So yeah, I'm sorry. If something's productive, I'm going to go there.
Right. And if we were to, let's say, try to create a new product that did Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype better, then there's not a whole lot of application frameworks geared for productivity when creating video conferencing systems. But so the options are less. But when it comes to creating business applications that primarily are systems of record and systems of interaction, and they move data around and they automate processes and help people collaborate and get work done, that space is crawling with productivity options.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
and that's again why I'm focusing so much on Oqtane, because for certain situations, many situations, I would even argue most situations, it allows the biggest productivity, and again, that's why I'm very excited about it. And that's why you're going to see my future focus, even though I'm 100% committed to Blazor technology, I am focusing on Oqtane as a way to deliver the maximum productivity with Blazor. Though a pure Blazor application from scratch will still be very, very productive. And obviously I'll still be blogging on that and that sort of thing. But I can't get away from the fact that I could literally sit a developer down for one day, explain to them, hey, this is what our client needs. And the next day, have something that the client can then log into and provide feedback on. That to me is what my purpose in life is about, is to deliver things so that the humans can do the things that matter. Not for me to sit there and play around and get all excited about some obscure technology for, 2 weeks. And the organization is spending a lot of resources to support me having fun playing around with NPM. Right.
Well, let's end on some techie bits for the people that really are wishing we go a little bit deeper, because you've put multiple of the Blazor apps in production. They're running with the server-side SignalR connection.
Yes.
What kind of scale have you experienced, and what have you seen about the performance and scalability of that signal connection.
I'm gonna go on the record here. The Blazor server-side apps use less resources than an equivalent MVC or web forms app.
Okay.
That's a huge statement for me to make. And even Microsoft's going to be like, I'm telling you, what happens is that I've literally put Blazor apps, server-side apps, I publish them to even a freebie Azure, website. I'll tweet out, I've got thousands of followers. I'll tweet out, hey, I want you guys to try to bring this thing down. And I'll open up the Azure, and I can see the connections coming in. And what happens is that the app the memory will, boom, it'll spike. And it'll hit like this, 60%. And it'll just stay there. Then you look at the CPU. And the CPU will like barely budge. And the traffic's coming in, the connections, you can see multiple connections and people are holding the connection because if they leave the page open, it'll hold that connection. So more people come in, so it's more and more connections. CPU's like, this is nothing. And I'm hitting, this is, hitting the database every time they click, I'm going to the database. It just shrugs it off. So it's like, I know people in their minds, they're thinking, well, wait a minute, the server side is maintaining connection. That's bad. Folks, what you don't realize is that with a standard web app, every time a person clicks the button, a big packet, not just bytes, but kbytes are being sent to the server. Memory is being allocated, things are loading up, and it then processes things. And then it creates this payload that then goes back, that then has to be, and this is where people don't understand about Angular, was Angular has to run a bunch of code in the person's web browser, eating up memory to consume that payload and go, okay, wait, the screen's this has got to change. And there's a lot going on. Whereas with Blazor, it's all being server-side Blazor. It's all being computed on the server, which is very efficient with things. And only the little, what they call a diff, is being sent back. So it's way less traffic. And in the end, in my opinion, way less processing power. So anyone who says that Blazor server-side has a problem running in production has not run it in production.
Okay.
So I've, at this point, both, like I said, personal open source projects and personal sites, as well as applications, for the company I work for. Since we were putting stuff in production in like October of 2019, no problems whatsoever. You can't, traffic, not a problem. So as far as I'm concerned, it works great, and I will continue to use it. And as far as client-side Blazor, it has certain things that it can do, for example, offline. So if you have an offline scenario, then obviously you have to use client-side Blazor. Otherwise, I do line of business applications, whereas every click needs to interact with the server. For me, server-side Blazor is all that I'm currently using. Yeah,
well, that's the only thing that's released so far. For production.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would not put something in production that's not released, which in client side is not released, as you and I are having this conversation.
So for business, are there any UI controls that you found for Blazor like really awesome and complete at this stage?
I would say all of them. So every major vendor, the Telerik, the Syncfusion, Radzen, I've used them all. They all work. I wrote the book for Syncfusion because they do have a very complete, they have like Gantt charts and, just some really, really, really complete suite. And I was interested in writing a book for them because in only 80 pages, I wanted to take a person step by step, every single line of code through creating a application. In this case, it's a help desk application that has not just a simple table of, but I have an associated table where help desk ticket has help desk ticket incidents or items associated. So you have that associated, which is a very difficult, thing, especially to describe in a single tutorial where you're walking a person through every single line of code. Yet Blazor, plus the fact that they have a complete, all these controls and that sort of thing, I really was able to do it. And that was my motivation for actually writing the book, was because I wanted, especially new developers, to be able to see that, oh my God, you really can be productive. And I can walk you through every line of code, but they could not make those controls without the Blazor technology.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? They cannot, those controls are like their Angular controls, but you can't use them with the productivity that you can with Blazor. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's why I wrote, when they came to me, I said, you know what? I want to write this book because I want to prove a point. And at the end, on page 80, when I hit save, I go, you know what? I feel I've achieved it.
Awesome.
So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. Well, hey, is there any other resources for people who want to dig in right away to Blazor? Any go-to resources that you would have them head out to immediately?
I would say please check out blazorhelpwebsite.com. That's my site, and that's where I will constantly explore. I have beginner tutorials, so I think if you try my beginner tutorials, they're constantly updated, because my goal is do not leave no developer behind. So the fact that you may not be that, experienced, whatever, I really try to make sure I don't leave you behind. So I would say, please check out those tutorials. Blazor.net, that's the Microsoft site. That's the home site. That's the last word in everything. And the other sites that I would say is Oqtane, with a Q, .org, to get involved with the Oqtane project, because that's the thing I feel will give you the highest productivity for your eventual applications.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is a great conversation. I learned a ton, and I know the listeners did as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care. And until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.azuredevops.show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.